Hello and welcome to Military Mantra. In this interview, we have today Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain, PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SM, VSM, and BAR. And in this interview, we'll try to understand his journey of joining Indian Army, life in Indian Army, and various life lessons that he has learned over his service. So thanks a lot, sir, for coming on this interview and welcome.
Namaskar and Jai Hind to everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me for this interview, and it'll be my pleasure to take any questions.
So, sir, if you could, start telling us how was your journey before joining the force look like, and what was your motivation back then to join the army?
See, I'm essentially a second generation officer, so mine is a slightly different case. There are lots and lots of people whose parents are in the army, who have been in the other ranks or JCO's ranks or in the officer ranks. Lots of them who will aspire to join the army. This is for them also perhaps a couple of lessons. I had a fantastic educational background. I credit my parents completely for that. Initially, my parents were moving from station to station all over the place. I studied in different schools up to class 5. But thereafter, they gave me a very stable education. I went to Sherwood College Nainital. That's the school. Very famous because it's Amitabh Bachchan school. It is also the school where Field Marshal Manekshaw studied, and we also produced the first Paramveer Chakra of India, as you are probably aware, and many other credits that the school has had. Thereafter, I had an option. I could directly have joined the National Defence Academy because my interest was always in the forces, but my father gave me advice that it's good to go and try outside and see how life outside is. So I went and joined college. I had a good result, so I joined St. Stephen's College, Delhi, which is one of the most high-profile colleges of India. And I did a course, a graduate's course, on a graduate course there. And I still felt I needed to join the army. So I decided to sit for the Combined Services exam. That time, it was not a Combined Services exam. It was just called the entrance exam. And I went through the UPSC written exam. I went through the SSB, and in my first go, was selected and joined the IMA as a direct entry cadet. Did reasonably well in IMA. I was in the first 30 in the merit of my course. Did well in academics, in some outdoors, did very well in tactics, and emerged and got a unit of my choice. And what was the unit of my choice? It was my parental unit. So I joined 4 Garhwal Rifles. Garhwal Rifles is a regiment which comes from Uttarakhand. All my Jawans come from one region, that is Garhwal. Okay. And I had known the regiment, I had known the men very well. I knew the characteristics, I knew the culture of Garhwal very well, because as a child, with my father, in the parent unit, one had learned all this. So it was very easy for me to merge with my men. But let me tell you, when you are a second generation soldier, and this I can tell many of you are as aspirants also, when you're a second generation officer, don't think everything is going to be hunky-dory when you join your father's unit. You will be expected to do things far beyond what your father ever achieved. That's the challenge that your men will throw at you. And one of the greatest things in that is to beat the men at everything they do. I took it as a challenge that in every bit of training, as a fighter, as carrying out battle proficiency tests, that is the physical tests, doing tactical training, doing night training, any form of military activity, my aspiration was, how can I do it better than my men? So that my men have no qualms about following me into battle. And that is the kind of reputation I aspired for, and I dare say I achieved it to some extent.
True, sir. Sir, I would like to take you back to your experience in the service selection board. Also, now that you look back, what tips you would like to give to the aspirants who will be, appearing for these SSBs?
Okay. Firstly, let me no restrictions. You are from any background, any religion, any faith, any caste. The Indian Army will respect the diversity. This is something we strongly believe in. We believe in having people who are the best. And the best we can only get if our system is open to every single human being who calls himself an Indian. That's number one. The number two thing is you need to prepare yourself. Don't somehow get overawed by this fact that for the civil services, IAS and foreign service and customs and things like that, or the IPS, you have to work for 2 years and write a very, very strong, difficult exam. And to join the army, you have to only write a simple combined defense services examination and go through the SSB. Let me tell you, the SSB selection system is 100 times better than any selection system anywhere in this country. And that goes for not only civil services, it goes for the corporate sector too. There are many times when you'll find officers, people who have been picked up by the SSBs, who have been picked up after their entrance exam and after that the SSBs, they get offers of jobs even. People say, oh, here, you see, the man has cleared the SSB. If the forces can find him suitable to join the army or the armed forces, then obviously he is suitable to join any profession in which we can guide him, we can mold him to do that. So first of all, be inspired that you are aspiring to be an officer of the Indian Armed Forces. That itself is a huge challenge, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when you enter the SSB, remember, there is a tendency among people to have mob mentality. When you see a lot of people collected together there, you also tend to join the mob. There may be acts of indiscipline taking place. You are told to put off lights at night and you're in the barrack that you're staying. And you said, like hell, who the hell is going to bother? So you keep your lights on. Or you're told to put your chest number on your chest and while going out anywhere in the town, etc. And you say, like hell, this is not something that I'm going to do. I would strongly advise follow every direction because you are under observation. People are going to observe you and they're going to see your discipline. And discipline is something that you cannot compromise as far as the armed forces is concerned, right? Then the next thing is, you should have prepared yourself by I'm not recommending you go to coaching centers. You can, there's nothing wrong with it. You can go there. But the problem is that the moment you go to a coaching center, there is a particular system which is sort of tuned into your brain and your answers are based upon that. And anyone who's interviewing you can make out that you have come from an academy where you have been tutored. It's very good to be natural. And that natural thing comes by, first of all, meeting lots and lots of people who have been through the SSB themselves, right? Some of them who have failed, many of them who have passed, and nothing like trying to meet someone who has been a group testing officer, GTO. A GTO of an SSB is very, very experienced. Or if you have a president of the SSB, a retired officer, or someone who's a senior officer today who has been a president of an SSB, the interaction with that kind of a person will do you great good. Because they'll be able to tell you what are they exactly looking for in your various actions that you undertake when you're being questioned, when you're doing group tests and things like that. Remember, your leadership isn't under test. Your leadership, I won't say your leadership potential is under test, right? The army will hone you into becoming a leader, right? But at this time, they're basically looking for, do you have the potential in you? Are you essentially a selfish person by nature? For example, given a task, would you like to be participative in every activity? Would you like to help a person, for example, someone who's weaker physically, right? And he's been given a task. Would you be the first one to volunteer and say, I'm going to come and help you? Now, that is the kind of action which is considered as positive, right? So positivity is what people are looking for. A soldier cannot be a negative person. A soldier is a warrior, is a person who can even go to his death, right? Based upon the task and the orders which have been given to him. Here, people are testing you for your worth. That do you have that basic discipline? Do you have a sense of positivity in your mind? If you've got this, then you're suitable to be a warrior, right? So This is the group tests are very, very important. Here you have group discussions also.
Yes.
And you may be given subjects sometimes which are, out of the world. Don't fib. Don't lie. Tell your GTO, this is something which I'm not very comfortable with. Perhaps he will even change a subject and give it to you. I've done this in my life, and I've tested people at different ranks in the army. If something which I've given to a person to speak on and he's not comfortable with it, I've immediately changed it. After all, human beings are not expected to know everything.
Yes.
There are few things which you don't know, right? So your honesty, your ability to be honest is a very, very important quality. And then, of course, is the proper interview, right? The interview with the panel. And there they will put subject to about 15, 20 minutes, half an hour of questions and ask you various things about your background, about your parents, about your siblings, your education, your institution that you have been. And essentially, they will see your sense of articulation, number one. And number two, they will see your sense of being able to respond with an organized brain behind it. Your answers must not come sporadically from different directions. They should all be with an element of focus. That is what they are looking at. An organized mind. That is what they are looking at. For example, a very simple example, they could ask you, have you played any games?
Yeah.
And what are your favorite games? Right? And if you say, okay, my favorite game is hockey or football or cricket, they tell us, okay, tell us something about cricket, the current happenings in cricket. Are you interested in IPL? Tell us something. What do you know about IPL? So you start off by saying IPL in so-and-so year it was founded, right? And we've had so many editions of the IPL tournament, and we have so many teams in it, and international players come, a team is formed in this manner, you have an auction for it. Now you go sequentially, logically to give your answer. If you start saying something out of the blue and then jump back to something else and then go back to something else, that is reflective of a mind which is not an organized mind, right?
Got it.
So, and the last piece of advice, you have a what is called a psychological test, and in that they will show you pictures and things like that, and ask you to write one paragraph or something. Remember, positivity. Don't write anything negative, right? Anything which you see, any picture that you see, look at the positive side of that picture, right? Look at the positive side of the picture and write about that. These are some of the hints which I can give to your candidates, and I'm sure many of them will benefit from this.
Got it, sir. Sir, I have one more question. We hear something called as, officer-like qualities, or the OLQs, that there are some 15 OLQs. So what is your perspective about it, and how can a candidate, develop those qualities so that he eventually gets recommended also and become a better person also?
Okay. I hope your viewers, when they look at me in this video, the first thing they should notice is an officer of the Indian Army who was retired 9 years ago. He's appearing in front of you with a tie, a shirt, right? Organized mind. These are officer-like qualities. I could have come here in a t-shirt also, right? I could have come in a t-shirt and joined you just now. It would not have been reflective of an officer-like quality from my side, right? Formally dressing. When I'm in a discussion with anyone, I am formally dressed, reasonably formally. I won't say this is not a formal dress, but my level of formality is a little higher, right? Other aspects of, officer-like qualities will all be inculcated, will be assessed when you are joined the academy. That's the place where actually OLQ really matters.
Okay.
OLQ, it doesn't really matter so much at the SSB level, although they're assessing you for the potential of OLQ, officer-like qualities. And I would say in that, many of the things I've already stated. One of the things is turnout, right? Your physical fitness. You should not be obese. You should not be overweight. You should look, even if you are not very fit, at least you should look fit, if nothing else, right? Then intellectually, you should be able to gel, which means that it's not necessary for you to be able to answer every single question that they ask you. But majority of the questions, you have something to contribute, which generally means your general knowledge. You should be able to hold your own in terms of your general knowledge. That comes I would recommend to every single SSB aspirant, must do newspaper reading for at least 1 year before that. I want to tell your aspirants today, I read 6 newspapers in a day today. 6 newspapers.
Okay.
Right? And I'm not one of those who continues to read them online. I like my paper. I like the crisp paper, and I like to have it with my morning tea, or I like to, while I'm being driven to office in my car, I like to read 1 or 2 newspapers at that particular time. My knowledge has to be updated at all times. Right? This is among one of the very, very important aspects of officer-like qualities. And then your ability to be persuasive, to be able to convince people. After all, half the job as a leader in the army that you're going to do is lead your men into conducting different tasks. If you've got a negative mindset and you say, okay, let's just do this for the sake of it, the pursuit of excellence, that's an officer-like quality. The pursuit of excellence. I have been given a task, I will do it to my utmost. I will ensure that I do it the best I can. I will not be happy with 50%. I will be happy only with 90%. 100% is impossible, so I'll be happy with 90 or 95%. I shall aspire for that. Right? This is a typical officer-like quality.
Got it.
Among other officer-like qualities, I would also say basic physical courage. Right? Which of course you cannot display in an SSB in that manner, but you will when you are undertaking group tasks, etc. Try to become obvious there. When you volunteer to undertake something little more difficult than what others are doing, it will automatically emerge in the minds of someone who's observing that this gentleman is not afraid of getting hurt. That's a very important thing. Someone who is afraid of getting hurt cannot be a leader, cannot be an officer. The officer should be willing to muddy his hands. And that's a very important aspect in these group tests. Don't bother about your clothes, the white shorts and the white vest you're wearing, etc. Let it go and let it become as dirty as possible. Roll on the ground if necessary. Pick up all the dirt of the world, everything. You should display your desire, your ardent desire to achieve the task rather than bothering about what your turnout is at that particular time. Okay. So these are some of the hints which I'm sure your candidates can benefit from.
Got it. So if you could, also speak about, the communication skills. How does one candidate improve that according to you?
Yeah. This is a very important question. Communication skills don't come easy. It's not that as if some people are born. I do admit some people are born with communication skills and they have the basic confidence of being able to, approach someone, go to someone, stand on a stage and talk. There are others who acquire it over a period of time. You assess yourself. Lots and lots of candidates would be able to assess themselves if in school and college they have been afraid to put up their hand to ask a question. Now that's a typical person who's challenged as far as communication skills are concerned. If you're afraid that by putting up your hand and asking a question, someone may laugh at you and your question and say, so you are left wondering, is my intellectual capability good enough to match all these people who are sitting with me? So a person with communication skills never has these kind of fears. He's confident, he stands up, speaks, makes his point, makes his argument, right? Accepts what the others are also saying. And that's how you continue your conversations. Conversations are very important. It's not one-sided conversations, but it is two-sided conversations. Now, the other aspects of good communication comes out of having good knowledge. And without knowledge, I'm afraid, why are we talking about knowledge with the SSB? Knowledge in any sphere of life. You want to be tomorrow a management graduate, you want to be a corporate honcho, you want to join the IPS, or you want to join any other thing. You may be a technical person completely, looking to be an engineer. So it's knowledge of your sphere, looking at engineering, looking at technologies, and diverse other spheres, which is what is called general knowledge. So unless your general knowledge is high, your communication skills will invariably be low. So this is something to work on. Now, how exactly do you feel confident to be able to speak? I suppose suggest that people should start by speaking to their friends, people who are not likely to pull them up, with whom they are not likely to get embarrassed in any way. Family. Sit with your family and say, I'm going to speak for 5 minutes on what is happening in Ukraine. Right? And you stand up, let the family sit in front of you, and you speak. Your family is not going to laugh at you. Your family is not going to tell you things. Right? They'll correct you. They'll tell you something which you will learn. 3 or 4 times you do this and you see how your articulation and how your communication skills change. Right? The next time you do it with your friends. Good friends, 3 or 4 of them, sit down, 5 minutes, give me 5 minutes. Not more than 5 minutes. Don't start giving half-an-hour speeches. 3 to 5 minutes is good enough. I am going to make a point on India-China relations as in the context of Ladakh. Right? He sits down, he stands up, gets his 4 or 5 friends to sit there and gives them a talk. At the end of it, they will probably point out many more things to him. Right? And they will tell him what his faults are. See, you're shaking your arm, or you're shaking, your neck is on a different direction, and you're not, whenever you're speaking, you're not conscious of this fact that your neck is creaking to one side and things like that. These are all little aspects which add finesse to your capability to communicate. And then you try it on a bigger stage.
Got it.
Some strangers, few strangers must be there, right? There should be some people who you don't know well enough. Can this be organized? Yes, I'm sure it can be organized. People can organize this kind of thing. 5 minutes, 7, 8 minutes, anyone will give. If you're already working in an office, ask the office people. Strangers, not necessarily people who you're familiar with. Remember, speaking to strangers and speaking to people you're familiar with is a world of difference. That confidence doesn't come. Right? The moment you speak to strangers, that confidence doesn't come. But over a period of time, when you have developed, you will see that there's a connect between your tongue and your brain. The brain-tongue connect is a very, very, very important aspect of public speaking. So I hope these will be some useful hints for you all.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So if you could, also speak about your journey in the IMA. You said you were a direct entry to Indian Military Academy. So any memories that you have from your time in the academy, which you still cherish, what would that be?
Great. Remember when you joined the academy, you may have been in a Sainik school, or you may have been in a public school, you may be in a private school, you may be coming from college. You've led a wonderful life at home, getting up at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, having a healthy breakfast, having a good sleep in the afternoon. You are going to get a culture shock. It's going to wake you up. Just remember that. And the most important thing to remember is that the whole purpose in IMA is to mold this iron which has come. This is a raw piece of iron which has come there. We have to heat up this iron, right? Make it malleable, bang it from different directions and shape it into something different. And you will see this within 8 or 10 weeks when you do your drill square test. Because you'll go through the basics of drill, saluting, halting, marching, and things like that. The use of the weapon, weapon drill, your rifle drill, and things like that. You will find that when you go for your drill square test and you pass the test on your first go, it will give you so much of confidence. Your chest will come swelling out. Your manner in which you walk will change completely. You will start when you look at your drill instructors, you want to walk like that. And automatically you start walking like that. When you go to town, you will find yourself very different to everyone else. And it gives you a sense of, pride that you are different. My chest is out. I walk in this manner. I'm physically fit. It is that moral. It's a kind of a moral ascendancy over the rest of the people, which makes you stand out. This is a very important aspect. And drill is one of the very important subjects in the academy. Although all of us who have been cadets hate to do drill because it is so much of physical labor, it is so much of physical work. But let me tell you, all of us today, generals, brigadiers, colonels, anyone today, if you ask them, who do you recall from your academy days the most? He'll say, my drill ustad. He'll say, the person who taught me drill. There's a whole segment of these people, vicious people, absolutely. They got huge mustaches and they come screaming at you at all times. They'll make you run, they'll make you jump up and down and do your drill in different ways and sweat away like mad. And when you pass out, when you're passing out and when you got a pip, 2 pips on your shoulder, they are the first people who come and salute you.
Mm.
They are the first, they are all NCOs. They'll come and salute you. I had almost a lifelong relationship with my ustad. I still recall. Wonderful. I mean, the kind of people they are. So, and discipline. They are the ones who instill discipline in you. So, my experience in the academy, I think I enjoyed drill tremendously. The second thing which I really enjoyed was weapon training. Basics, the rifle, today all the rifles, the light machine gun, they'll teach you the automatic grenade launcher, they'll teach you the rocket launcher, they'll teach you all these weapons and how to fire it, how to find faults while carrying out activities, etc. You sit in a squad and learn. The army has got a fascinating way of teaching. Right? The methods of instruction that the army follows is amazing. It's time tested. You sit 10 people sit together with one instructor and 10 people. You're sitting in a squad and a weapon is placed in front of you and you're called turn by turn. You come and operate the weapon and go back. And the ustad keeps giving you directions, keeps teaching you new aspects of that particular weapon. It's an amazing way, progressive understanding of technologies and things like that. Okay. Then I thoroughly enjoyed the camps. In every term at the academy, you have certain camps towards the end of the term. Mm. And in one of these camps, you also have something called the Great Escape, which means you are left. You are acting as if you are in a prisoner of war camp, and you have escaped from there. And there will be ambushes all along the route. You're coming back from that faraway place, 40, 50 kilometers away. You're coming from there. You have just got your compass with you and you've got maybe some rations with you, nothing else. And you're not expected to take a lift in any vehicle, but you have to navigate your way with a map. And you got your water bottle with you, fill your water wherever you want. 2, 3, 4, 5 people will group together and make these groups and you navigate your way back to the academy. It's a fascinating thing. And en route, ambushers are there. They'll try and catch you. They'll try and to make sure that if it was a real situation, you would never have been able to get back home, right? So this is a little bit of play acting done in this, but tremendous test of physical fitness because it's 30, 40 kilometers of marching that you got to do to get back, right? Then the sports and games, and I think no one will forget the first of the boxing bouts which you normally have. It's called I'm forgetting exactly what it's called, beginners, or it's called novices boxing. Sorry, yeah, it's called novices boxing. So you do 2 rounds or so of 2 minutes each against someone who's selected, someone who's as good or as bad as you in boxing. But you're expected to really punch each other. You have to get rid of this fear of getting hurt. Right? So you punch, you get punched, you should be able to take a beating, you should be able to give a beating. That's a very important aspect of soldierly qualities, right? And then, of course, there are lots of academics keep taking place from time to time, very good social events. Lovely, the cadet messes are very good, enough to eat. There's no denial of anything, because you're hungry at all times. The amount of physical effort you're doing, you're hungry at all particular times. And then there are very good clubs. You go hiking, you have shooting clubs, all different types of clubs. So once a week or so, you have club activity. So it's a very wholesome life that you spend for this 1.5, 2 years that you are there. at the academy before you finally pass out from there and get the pip on your shoulders. And I can say this, that in that period of time, you have undergone a journey of a lifetime and probably changed your entire personality. People, if you go home after 18 months, if someone has not seen you for 18 months, no one will recognize this is the same person who went to the academy at this time.
Understood, sir. So if you could, also speak about after IMA, you joined the 4th Garhwal Rifle. So what was your motivation to join that? Also, as a young officer, when you joined it, how was your role, routine, and responsibility? And how did it eventually evolve when you grew in your service?
See, you get a choice of arms at the academy. You can give whatever choice you want. You get a first, second, and third choice, right? And the army has what is called the military secretaries branch, which I headed at one time. They have a system of evaluating your choice, and then according to you, which arm or service you will go to, which unit you will go to. A very, very simple example, just for the idea for our friends here. You have opted, let's say, for 15 Jack rifles. You are a direct entry cadet, right? But a direct entry cadet has gone in the last term to 15 Jack rifles. Now, this time you will not be able to go, because they have to have a mix of different entries, people from different backgrounds. If someone from South India has gone into a particular unit, next time there'll be someone from Western or Eastern India. So we have a very good system, very, very fair system. No one can really question it. The only difference in this is what is called the priorities. The priority one is parental. If your father has been the commanding officer of a unit, or he has been decorated in that unit in battle, or he's been the Subedar major of that unit, then you are on P1. You will get priority one. You will get that unit, irrespective of where you are in the merit. Otherwise, the system is that 400 people are passing out, so you make groups 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. In the first 50, there must be 8 people who must go to the engineers, 10 people who must go to the artillery, 20 people who must go to the infantry, 3 people who must go to the armored corps. Right? So you have, every arm and service is getting people from different parts of the overall merit list. Otherwise, everyone will opt for the engineers. Yes. Today, you have an army chief who's come from the engineers. So everyone gets motivated and say, I want to join the engineers. So the first 50, you find 45 people are from the engineers. This doesn't gel, right? It's a very fair system. As I said in the beginning, we make sure we follow all these parameters to give you your armor service.
Got it.
Having done that, you have been commissioned into it. If you're an infantryman, you will go for a short while to your regimental center. Like I'm from Garhwal Rifles.
Yes.
My regimental center is in a place called Lansdowne, right? Which is in the Garhwal Himalayas. I'll go there for 14 days to learn about the regiment, about my men, the system of documentation, how do they get trained here, what are the strengths and what are their weaknesses, something to do with my regimental traditions, something to do about my officers' mess, the trophies which are there in the officers' mess, the regimental history of my regiment, all this in 14 days, they will cram it into you. Then good regiments, like my regiment always sends out what is called a Garhwal Darshan. We send our young officers on a tour of Uttarakhand, Garhwal part of Uttarakhand, to see the recruiting areas. They go and stay in the houses of many of the Jawans. And that way, they eat exactly the same food which a Garhwali eats up in his village, right? He lives with them, understands their social problems, the problems of education of their children, the problems of transportation, how much time it takes to get from one place to the other. All this he understands. You see, for us, the most important aspect of leadership among officers is the knowledge of his men. Because ultimately, you have to lead them into battle. You have to win their confidence, right? So this is one thing which you do. Now you come back to your unit, and your unit could be in a peace station or it could be in field area. If you're in a field area, it's more thrilling, it's very challenging. I would say if you come to the line of control, come to a place like Tangdhar or Uri or Kargil or some place like that, or even if you go to Eastern Ladakh, When you come in, nobody is going to throw you into operations immediately. You come, you'll be received by a Sahayak, who will become your buddy. He's your friend, philosopher, guide, as far as the unit is concerned. He'll be in there for some time. That the boy, he will make you comfortable. He will draw your equipment and things like that, and he will introduce you around. You will go to your company, your platoon, etc. Many units have different ways of welcoming their officers, right? Many good units put their officers, make their officers become Jawans for the first 15 days. That means you go and sleep with the Jawans. Where the Jawan's bunker is, you sleep in the bunker. Because as an officer, tomorrow you're going to get a more comfortable bunker. If you don't go through the Jawan's bunker, you will never realize what the difficulty of the Jawan is. How are you going to realize that what it takes on a winter morning when the temperature outside is minus 20 degrees, what it takes on the part of a unit cook? A unit cook who gets up in the morning at 4 o'clock to make the breakfast, the tea, and then the breakfast. It's snowing outside. It's snowing outside. He's the only man who's getting up, along with him, one more assistant perhaps, to go light up the fire, make the tea in the morning, serve the tea to everyone, and then after that, cook the breakfast. What a challenging job.
True.
Up on top there. Here it may sound the simplest of things to go into a kitchen and prepare your food. Right? If you have not been a cook in your unit, if you have not cooked food, if you have not cut vegetables, you will never realize it. You won't be a leader of men. I've done it. We have all done it. All good units make their officers go through this. We are not treated like officers in the beginning. At the beginning, when you go to your unit, a good unit will rub you into the ground, make you realize every difficulty that your Jawan goes through. Tomorrow, when you become an officer and you're giving an order, you should know the implications of your order. That's the most important thing.
Got it.
Yeah, let's go further.
Sir, I have one more question. When you joined as a young officer, and since you were from infantry, how was your first experience in the combat, and various learnings that you have from that when you now look back?
Unfortunately, I did not join in a combat situation. I did join field area, came to peace very early, subsequently went into a field area in the east, which was not looking at combat in any way. I came into a combat environment in about 9 years of service. Right? This happens to different officers. And thereafter, I never left that combat environment. All my career after that, I was in a combat environment. Right? So the experience in a combat environment is that, first of all, there is an essential fear. Every man, if a man says he's not afraid, then there's something wrong with him. Field Marshal Manishaw used to famously say that if a man is not afraid, either he's a liar or he's a Gorkha. Right? Gorkhas are not afraid, they say it, but they are such brave men, they never are afraid. Right? So every man is afraid. Most of the time, you'll find patrolling on the line of control, particularly, is a very, very fearful activity. Right? Because you are first of all moving. Anywhere that you are moving, you become vulnerable. Someone is sitting and waiting for you. For example, there is a border action team of Pakistanis and terrorists, etc., sitting just across the line of control, or sitting inside your area, which they've come in at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they know that in the morning a patrol will come along the line of control fence, for example, right? And you are leading a patrol of 6 men. Right? It's a challenge. It's a challenge at that stage, right? You have to make I would recommend when you're doing a patrolling of that kind, you will not move more than 500 meters in an hour, maybe 350 meters in an hour. That deliberately and that slowly, right? There are nuances which you must learn. People who have been on the line of control there, the unit before you will teach you a lot of things. The men of your own men who are there, they will teach you a lot of things. For example, a unit which does not have dogs,
okay,
is a unit which doesn't know how to patrol on the line of control. The dog is your greatest strength there. And these dogs are what are called gaddi dogs. Why? They just roam around in those areas. But you can get them in, you give them food, right? And they are your greatest friends. And every patrol normally has 2 dogs accompanying it, right? And these are the dogs which will give you early warning. The moment a dog stops and starts growling, you better take a position. Because you know there's some danger which is lurking ahead in front of you. Then you will take necessary action against that danger. So these are great experiences which happen at young ranks, particularly on the line of control. You may find ceasefire violations taking place. And then the first time a ceasefire violation takes place, with you in command there, let's say you're commanding a platoon or something like that, you will wonder, should I respond? Should I retaliate or should I not? Whose orders am I waiting for? Do I look over my shoulder to my commanding officer or to my company commander to tell me that I should command? Actually, it's your responsibility. You can undertake the decision. Let's fire back. The fire has come on you, you fire back. Or you may undertake a proactive task to fire, right? Which you, without the enemy firing, you are firing at him, making sure that he keeps his head down. He makes sure he doesn't use certain routes in front of your area of deployment, etc. It's a battle of wits which goes on the line of control at all times. And a young officer coming out with 3 months of service, 2 months of service, grows up many years. When he starts taking decisions, when he sees the first casualty, a man of yours has been hit in the arm, or a man of yours has been killed. The first fatal casualty you see blood flowing, your mind starts changing. People get nervous in the beginning, right? It's a natural thing. Let's not look at it in that way that someone is, not capable of being a soldier. Everyone will be nervous under those circumstances. Your hands will be shaking, right? When you are holding a phone and giving a report to your commanding officer, your voice will be quaking, shivering. But over a period of time, that confidence will come in you. And then you are a tiger. You are a tiger of that area.
Got it, sir. So you have served around, 4 decades in the Indian Army. If I can ask you, any 3 life lessons that you have learned from your service time, which you still cherish, what would they be? Any 3?
Okay, let me look at it. One of life's greatest lessons I learned was never to judge a human being on the basis of his appearance. You'll be surprised. I was in operations in Sri Lanka for a very long time. And in our units, we sometimes tend to respect those men who are good sportsmen, good wrestler, boxer. You say, oh, this chap is a very good soldier. And you may find, and there are people who do nothing in the unit otherwise. Their turnout is also not very good. They don't seem to be very physically fit. They are generally, with their personalities of a low profile. Many times I find these were the men in battle who suddenly erupted. Those who were the tigers, sportsmen and things like that, didn't display those qualities which I was expecting them to display. But these are the people who I thought were nothings at all in peacetime. These are the people who suddenly emerged and surprised the hell out of all of us. So soldierly qualities are you as a leader. You have to understand, the more you live with your men, the more you work with your men, the more you operate with your men, you will start discovering the qualities of every single man. Every man is made differently, and you will understand those qualities. The longer you serve with them, the easier it is for you to be able to discern what those real qualities are. The other thing which I've already spoken about, I am known in the Indian Army for one thing, a system which I introduced. It is not an original thought at all. It's borrowed from the American Army. It's called the concept of the scholar warrior.
Yeah, yes.
Scholar warrior, right? Which means that you, as an officer leader, you can't be expected to just be a warrior. Then you are as good as your soldier, nothing else. You are expected to be miles above him in every sense, every capability, particularly in the intellectual field. Right? Your men should be flocking around you and asking you lots and lots of questions, and you should be answering all those questions. I used to love listening to BBC, The whole evening I would listen to BBC from 6:40 onwards for an hour or so. And then my men would come to me and sit with me. And with Petromax, I would be telling them a lot of things, what's happening around the world. Right? My men knew everything was happening in West Asia, what is happening in Europe, what is happening in Southeast Asia. I used to find a great fun in telling them this and enhancing their knowledge. I found that later this really came my way when I started doing it for the army in general. You see, when you have a good trained mind, when your mind is well educated, you have thousands of things which you have read and you have been able to discern and absorb them. Your responses to everyday life situations will be very different. They'll be very stable, they'll be very sensible. They won't be just off the spark. It won't be like that. Scholar warriorship, therefore, is a very essential aspect of leadership. Right? An officer who doesn't read, an officer who does not have knowledge beyond the army. You should be an expert in finance. You should be expert in technology. Right? I have tremendous respect for people who are very good in technology, in management studies. Right? These are some of the things, domains which you delve into and you specialize in them along with your warriorship. Right? Third point you have asked me to dwell upon, I would say the ability to understand human beings, which essentially means the correct terminology or word for it would be, in management terms, I would call it people orientation, right? Your ability to understand people. If you're not sensitive to your men, if you're not sensitive to their requirements, if you're not sensitive to the families of the men, the families of your officers, you will never get the respect of your command. Right? You have to be human enough. You have to be people oriented. Right? You will have lots and lots of people working with you on the line of control. You'll have porters working with you. You'll have pony drivers working with you, etc. If you don't have a large heart, for example, as a brigade commander, I would always tell my units, make sure that your porters who are with you get enough to eat. And the porters used to love coming up to the posts with lots and lots of items for the winter stocking. And they would sit there and dal and chawal and sabzi. They would eat just much of it. But it gave me great satisfaction that human beings were being fed by us. They were doing hard work for us and they were being fed at the same time. A hand on the back of every man. Just remember, every man is deserving a prize. In lurking inside you and me is some specialization, which deserves that you or I should get a prize. It is my leader, it is your leader. It is up to him to recognize that potential. Okay. To recognize that potential and pull out that quality from within you to make you deserving of that prize. These are some of the qualities I want to speak about.
Got it, sir. So my final question to you would be, because a lot of aspirants are watching us, what will be your message to all of them who wants to join the forces?
First of all, let me tell you, try your best. Try your best. Remember, in life, there is a philosophy of life which I have always followed. One window will close. If you don't make it in an SSB, one window of your life will close. But I can assure you from my experience of years now, when one window closes, 6 windows will open. Right? You have alternatives and alternatives and alternatives, including alternatives which are very closely linked to the army. For example, if you don't make it to the army as an officer, tomorrow you can try for the territorial army and come back perhaps as an officer. Or you can try for short service and make it there, right? If you're really very hung up about coming to the army. So don't get disappointed. Don't be disappointed. You can continue pursuing this profession, supporting the armed forces, reading a lot, talking about it, being positive. Understand the armed forces, understand the army. Be their ambassador, for example. Be their ambassador. Today, I'm 8-9 years after retirement. What am I doing at the moment? I'm being an ambassador of the Indian Army, speaking to you, right? I'm speaking good things about the army, about my experience. You may not have the experience to talk about, but you have to go. So you can get so much of knowledge by reading, by observing, by watching. Become an ambassador with that knowledge. Speak positively about it. Why should you be negative? Negativity in life, just shun it. Shun it. And particularly if you're a soldier, the only philosophy of life is victory. Victory. That comes out of positivity.
Got it, sir. So thanks a lot, sir, for taking out time for this session. It was an enlightening experience, and I hope a lot of people will watch, will get an perspective about how life in armed forces looks like. So thanks a lot again, sir, for your time. Jai Hind.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. It was a great opportunity. I know we've spent about 45-50 minutes answering some of your questions. I look forward to doing this any other time in the future. If you feel that we need to sit together, this is my life's mission. Keep motivating people and keep informing them, educating them about the armed forces of India.
Sure.
Jai Hind to you and all our viewers.
Jai Hind, sir.